Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. As we know, the Season 2 update was one of the larger weapon and attachment tuning updates that we've seen in quite some time. With that, we saw quite a few changes to some of the more meta setups, some of the attachments you want to use in certain situations, especially when it comes to the general close range meta. And that today is what we're breaking down, the best close range meta weapons to use right now here in Season 2. So as we break it all down, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, you already know every single day I got you covered with all things going on in COD. News, updates, loadouts, tips, you're gonna find it all right here. So feel free to hit that sub button, click that bell icon, that way you'll always know whenever I post a new video. Also, if you ever want to cop a pair of Gamer Advantage glasses for yourself, you see me wearing these in every single face cam video. I got these on all day, every day. They're game changers when it comes to staring at screens and looking at them for long periods of time. So they got plenty of different frame options, and Code WARZONE gets you a nice little discount at checkout. Link will be down in the description below. So let's start first with the Owen gun. This is one of my favorite weapons in the game and has been for about the past half season or so, I would say. You guys have heard me talk about this a ton, and honestly, this thing is just an absolute blast to use. It is not only one of the strongest weapons in the game, but it's also very easy. So first up here, we're gonna go for the recoil booster, of course, get that better fire rate and help out that TTK there. You got two different barrel options here. Shrouded is really good for that sort of close and some medium range, like a little bit better for sniper support. You just don't get that headshot damage, which is a minor drawback in my opinion. Personally, I prefer the rapid barrel. This is going to be the most optimal TTK. It does hurt your accuracy, your ADS and whatnot a little bit, but this is going to be ideal for that most aggressive setup we've got. The optic, this is the most important part. You want to be using the Slate 2.5 times custom, because when you switch to that other red dot, it's going to get the magazine out of your way. It's going to give you a different perspective when you ADS and make it so that you can actually fully see everything instead of having that mag block your view. I'm also going for the remove stock, still the better ADS, better sprint to fire, better movement. That's huge when it comes to playing fast and playing aggressive and playing up close, obviously. For the underbarrel here, I'm still rolling with hand stop most of the time, just to really flatten out and minimize that recoil. It just makes it the most consistent and easiest to use. However, pistol grip is also a great option as well for that better sprint to fire. For the magazine, always going for the Gorenko 72 round drums, better fire rate, better accuracy, better control on there as well. Hollow point, I'm really enjoying, especially after the whole incendiary nerf. You could try and use lengthen if you wanted to. It just doesn't really feel like it's getting the most benefit there, because you're only fighting in like 0 to 20, 25 meters here, where velocity is not super important. Hollow point to me is more of a pro to have on there. For the rear grip, I've actually been experimenting around quite a bit, and you'll notice this with the other setups we break down today. The fabric grip. Better ADS, better sprint to fire, better hip fire. You lose a bit of accuracy, but that's not the end of the world. So for a more aggressive build, fabric actually works really, really well. Now, if you're struggling a bit with the recoil, maybe you're not finding you're landing as many shots as you want to, then go for polymer. Absolutely. Better accuracy and control during sustained fire. That's huge. But if you want to go mad aggressive and play really, really fast paced, fabric is actually a great option for that. Perk 1 here, I like acrobatic, increase move speed. Then perk 2, either quick or fully loaded. Both of those are going to be great here. Just comes down to preference. You want max ammo or do you want slightly better mobility? Next up, we've got the Cooper Carbine. Yes, this is a rifle, but it's also insanely good for close range fights. It's fantastic for sniper support, close and medium range. This thing is one of the most dominant weapons in the entire game. I've been loving it ever since it was first added into the game. Honestly, it's been one of my go-to choices. So first up here, you do have some options for your muzzle. Now, MX Silencer is going to be great for more of that medium range build. It is going to hurt your ADS a little bit, but in those medium range fights, that's not nearly as important. Whereas Mercury is hurting your range a little bit, but if you just want to focus on a close range build here while also staying off the radar, Mercury is a really good option. If you don't care about being on the radar, you could also even try Recoil Booster, get that fire rate up even more, and make it utterly insane for close range. Just comes down to preference there. I feel like Mercury Silencer is probably going to be the most reliable there though. Now for the barrel, while the Cooper Custom is still primarily used for some of those medium and longer range fights, it also works really well for close range, as does the Ragdoll. This one does hurt your ADS a bit more. So to me, Cooper Custom, while it is hurting your sprint to fire a little bit, is still going to be more consistent. You can gain that back with other attachments. Better control and better fire rate though is really ideal here. I do prefer using the G16 2.5 times. That 2.5 times zoom is just, it's not crazy, you know, increased. So you're not zooming in too much so that close range fights are impossible. To me, it works really, really well for close to medium range. However, Slate Reflector always is going to be a great close range option as well. So it sort of comes down to your choice there. For the stock here, I personally prefer the 45 RS. Better ADS speed, so it's better up close, but also some better recoil recovery and initial firing recoil on there is pretty solid as well. If you wanted to go crazy, you could try remove stock, but you are going to notice a decent amount of recoil up close. For the underbarrel here, again, I'm going for hand stop just to help maintain that control, and we can use our mobility attachments elsewhere there. You can definitely try like the skeletal, but you are going to notice a little bit more recoil the more you get into like, 20, 25, 30 meter fights. For the magazine here, 9mm 60 is going to make this gun an absolute laser beam, super easy to use. For the ammo, the Cooper does have the very convenient compressed rounds, which I believe only this has, and for close range, these are insane. Like, it is not a bad idea to use these whatsoever. You could absolutely make these a viable setup here for close and medium range fights. However, length end also wouldn't be too bad in this case, particularly for some of those more medium range based fights, but because we're focused specifically on being up in their face, playing mad aggressive, I feel like compressed rounds are sort of the way to go here, right? For the rear grip, again, you could definitely go for fabric if you wanted to, or polymer. Both of those are going to be just fine. Really comes down to if you want the better ADS speed or maximum control there. For perk 1, hard scope is going to make things nice and easy to control as we're obviously shooting with our sights aimed down. And then perk 2, all kind of stuck here, mine is fully loaded, so of course we're going to go for that. While this may seem like it's more of a primary base build, it's insanely good up close just because that's how the Cooper is. Now, we can't not talk about the Welgun when we're talking the close range meta. We've talked about this a decent amount recently. First up, we are going to go for the recoil booster here, increase that fire rate a little bit more and make that a little bit more aggressive. For the barrel, you got two options. Gaiwan Short's going to give you the best fire rate and a really good TTK up close. Shrouded is also going to give you the best TTK possible, but it is also a lot slower. If you're using this, you do have to go through and adjust your attachments a lot to really make it speed oriented. So you'd want to throw that on, throw on like the skeletal underbarrel, throw on fabric grip, throw on, the remove stock. You really got to play to a lot of ADS and speed based attachments when you want to use shrouded. And so it does make the class setup a little bit more complex. I feel like if you go for the short barrel, the TTK is a little bit worse than the shrouded, but it's still very, very good. So you can't go wrong with either of those, honestly. For the optic here, I've been using the GW03 iron sights. I really like how these look, and they're just perfect for close range. Going for remove stock here, best sprint to fire, best movement speed, of course. For the underbarrel, if you want a super fast class, skeletal is going to be a great choice. Hand stop, though, is going to make it nice and easy to use, especially with some of the fire rate increasing attachments. It does hurt your control a little bit there, so that's a nice counterbalance to that, you could say. For the magazine here, 45-48 is a must-have. It does hurt your mobility a bit, but it's going to give you an insane TTK. For the ammo, we're going for hollow point yet again. Rear grip, just like before, you could use polymer or you could use fabric. Both of these are going to be great, great choices for the Welgun in particular. Perk 1, you got good options. Gung Ho, eliminate that sprint to fire. It's awesome, but we have so many other reduced sprint to fire attachments on there. I feel like you're sort of making those all obsolete when you use this. I'd rather go for the max mobility of acrobatic there. And then perk 2, again, quick or fully loaded, whichever floats your boat. Welgun, as we've talked about numerous times recently, absolute beast. Another familiar sight, the PPSH. We just talked about this earlier on this week when it was super, super broken because of the stealth buff that it got with the Season 2 updates. Personally, I love the hipfire build for this thing. It's such a nice change of pace. While obviously aiming down sights is never a bad idea, the hipfire build on this just gives it a unique approach to close range fights, and one that really can finesse players because they're just not prepared to have that instantaneous gunfight from the hip. Whereas a lot of the time it's who has that better ADS accuracy and control, who can really hit those headshots. If you got the hipfire on there, you're in there right away, no delay, just frying. So I love that. First up, we're going for the recoil booster, getting some better fire rate out of that. The 230mm barrel here is going to give you that better hip fire control and accuracy, so we love that on there as well. Even though we're not ADSing, we still get the accuracy and control pros of using an optic on here. We're obviously going for a move stock, better hip fire, movement speed, and sprint to fire, so that's huge there. For the underbarrel, you just want to focus on hip fire accuracy. Pistol grip gives you a better hip fire accuracy and sprint to fire, so that's a solid one to use, honestly. Steady gives you hip fire accuracy with no cons, and then Carver also gives you better hip fire accuracy as well. So any of those three, those work just fine. For the magazine, Nambu 71, better control, better fire rate. Ammunition, of course, we're going for hollow point yet again. In this case, you never want to use the polymer because we're not ADSing. It'd be between pine tar for that better hip fire and recoil control, or again, fabric for better sprint to fire and better hip fire. I feel like that's sort of the go-to there. Perk 1, going for tight grip, it does help out with the control a little bit. Then perk 2, fully loaded or quick, both again work just fine. And this is the best hip fire gun in the entire game. Perfect, literally perfect for close range fights. Another surprise one, sorta, the AS44, as we've talked about in the past on the channel. This thing's TTK is utterly insane. It's just only viable in super close range fights because we're going for the max fire rate, the max TTK build here, which outside of like 20 meters is almost unusable, but within those 20 meters, very few things are going to beat this gun. So first up, we're going for recoil booster again, get that better fire rate. The falchion barrel, also helps increase the fire rate, so you absolutely love to see that. For the optic here, I do actually go for the G16 2.5 times, primarily because this is going to help out with the control, and there's a lot of recoil on this thing when you're using all the fire rate attachments, right? So I go ahead, I use that. Remove stock for the best mobility, going to match this a little bit with some of the SMG speeds. For the underbarrel here, I do go for Carver, not only for the better control, but also for the better hip fire, because you are ADSing and hip firing quite a bit with this thing, sort of back and forth, because it is just that aggressive up close. For the magazine, I like the Grenko 50, better fire rate, better control, just making it a little bit more aggressive for those close range fights. Ammo here, I'd honestly go for hollow point yet again, even though it does hurt the range of velocity. Those aren't huge factors when you're fighting within 20 meters. Rear grip, again, you could go for polymer, and most players probably want to here because that fire rate just destroys the recoil, right? However, if you wanted to mess around, you could maybe try the fabric grip and see if it's just even better. But I think polymer is probably where most players are going to turn there. Perk 1, gung ho, give me that instant sprint to fire. And then perk 2 here, obviously fully loaded, because that's pretty much all we got there since it is a rifle. But this thing pretty much erases everything and everyone up close. It's utterly insane. Now, we also got the rare Cold War weapon here. Really, the close range meta is dominated by Vanguard guns, whereas the long range meta, MW and Cold War weapons are a lot more prominent there. But close range, you just don't see a ton of super competitive weapons that are not Vanguard guns, because those have such good mobility, such good stats, along with the ammo upgrades and whatnot, that they're hard to beat, honestly. But the LAPA's TTK is still very dominant. Of course, though, the setup is nothing new. We're going for agency, we're going for rifled, also going for Tiger Team for the better mobility. You got to use a stupid optic on this gun because the iron sights are so atrocious. Then you either go for a 40 round mag or a 50 round mag. 50 will be a little bit slower, but you do get more ammo, so it just comes down to your preference there. But yeah, there's no denying the LAPA is still a slappa up close. All right, post-edit Zach here. Don't know how I missed it, but I forgot to include the Type 100 on my list here. This thing is an absolute beast right now. With this particular setup on, it's got one of the best TTKs in the entire game. We're going for the recoil booster, then also the rapid barrel for that faster TTK. I personally like the short iron sights. You could use the slight reflector on here or any other optic you prefer using. I also go for the skeletal stock, better mobility and movement there. Skeletal underbarrel for the better ADS. The Kurz 48 round drums for the better damage alongside hollow point. The fabric grip yet again. Gung ho for that instant sprint to fire, then also quick for the better mobility. And then lastly, we've got the Mp40. No surprise here, this thing has been one of the better close range options we've had for quite some time. Recoil booster and the 317mm barrel is still my go-to for the muzzle and the barrel there. I'm still rocking the ISO 1M optic. I just like that clean iron sight with that better ADS. A lot of players want to use remove stock here, but I just don't feel like it's worth it. You're getting better movement speed, but sprint to fire and movement speed comes with the folding stock, which to me is just a little bit more important. For the underbarrel, you got some options. You could go for skeletal, get that better ADS, or you could go for pistol grip and get a better sprint to fire. It just comes down to your preference there. For the magazine, I'm still liking the Grenko 45, even though they did see a slight nerf with season 2. They're just nice and consistent, and the TTK is still very solid with this. Also going for hollow point on there yet again. Rear grip, fabric, I feel like is especially useful here because the recoil is just so easy on the Mp40 as is that you can definitely get away while using that. Perk 1, honestly, all these kind of suck, but we'll go for steady for that better movement, and then quick or fully loaded. As always, no surprise there. With that being said, those are the top close range weapons and loadouts to be using here in Warzone Season 2. All of these are going to fry up close, absolute beasts, and pretty much impossible to beat unless you're using another one of these options, right? So hopefully this video helped you guys out. If it did, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, feel free to do so. That way you can always stay up to date with everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.